Guys, if you've been to the range lately, you've probably seen something that's showing up more and more and more. That is an RMR sight sitting atop a pistol. A little bit different. I know in USPSA and IPSC you're used to seeing a Seymour or red dot in many cases, but these type of sights that are sitting down in a milled slide on a standard firearm, in many cases ones that people are actually carrying on a daily basis for concealed carry, this is becoming more prominent now. I'm going to explain a little bit about why these things have an advantage and how you can manipulate these things and have them work to your advantage in the real world. Over the years, we've all been conditioned to focus on our front sight. That's the sight you want to see. That's the sight you want to have in focus. You're not wanting to focus on your target or your rear sights. It's always the front sight. Those other two pieces are actually a little bit out of focus, a little fuzzy. Again, your target and your rear sight, but your front sight is what we've always been conditioned. Hey, look at that front sight, get a good bead on it and follow it, and you'll find your target behind it. Well, the cool thing about an RMR sight is the very fact that if you want to, you can focus on your target. You're going to pick up that red dot because it's just like if you're sitting at a traffic light and the light turns red or light turns green, you're picking up that sight. Even if you're not looking directly at that traffic light, you're picking that up out of your peripheral vision. So the same thing happens with a RMR pistol, RMR equipped pistol, is that if you're looking at your actual target, you are seeing, if you're looking through the glass and you're looking at your target, and that red dot is right there and you're picking that up, it's right in your line of sight anyway. So that's one of the advantages over standard iron sights that you're going to get with an RMR. Now, if you're in a real world situation and that is an attacker on the other end, let's say this attacker has taken your child hostage, for instance. Yeah, I know none of us want to be put in that type of situation, but it's a real life thing that could happen. Okay, if you're focusing on that attacker through your glass of your RMR, and you know, because you can see that red dot in the exact same plane that you're looking at your attacker on, you know where your red dot is at every single moment. You'll be able to pick up any kind of facial expression, maybe potential aggression where the guy's fixing to use a knife or something. Maybe you can tell that his finger is now moving to his trigger and he's going to do something. Little details that you wouldn't be able to notice if you were simply focusing on your front sight and that sight picture in the background was blurry and not in focus. Those are a couple of advantages that I can see in terms of utilizing an RMR in this type of situation. I'm sure it applies in many, many other cases. The real world guys out there, the tactical guys in the law enforcement, military, probably have tons of other explanations, but that's the one that I see that would benefit me the most, and any other situation for that matter. Now, if I'm trained and conditioned to always focus on my front sight, whether it's a real world situation or it's target practice or competition, I have a little bit of trouble doing that. Now, I'll wear prescription glasses, but usually whenever I shoot competition, I prefer to have some kind of a shaded lens, sunglass of some sort. Unless I'm willing to spend that extra money on prescription sunglasses, it becomes a little bit of a hindrance to me because it makes a big difference if I can't focus on my front sights when I'm shooting in a competition where points matter. Well, one of the things that you benefit from with the red dot is the very fact that you're not having to focus on that. You don't have to worry about losing focus. For some reason, I'm sure there's a scientific or a physics reason, the red dot is always in focus for me. I don't have to adjust my eyes. I don't have to, like if I'm focusing on something that's 20 yards away and I pull my gun up, I don't suddenly have to recondition my eyes and they're sitting here focusing, trying to bring that red dot into sight. It's already immediately in focus whenever I bring it up, unlike my iron sights are. A couple of advantages also that you really need to be aware of how you're actually affixing this is many of these RMRs are made now to where you actually put them in a milled out cut in your receiver. Well, the thing about that is you have to be real conscious of your torquing, of whatever the tightness that's recommended. You need to do that for a couple of reasons. One of them is I could see an advantage being that you could manipulate this pistol very, very easily. You know, you hear a lot about these pistols that have the higher or the ledge on the rear sight, to where if you get into a situation where you need to cock your gun with one hand, you can do it with this. Well, you could also do that with your RMR. Not only could you cock it a whole lot faster if you just run your hand across it and cock the slide to clear some kind of a malfunction, but also clearly on your belt or on your pocket, this RMR is going to catch it. Now, with that being said, you better have that thing torqued right, or you're going to either rip it off or you're going to get that thing so loose and out of focus that now it's not going to matter that you're aiming, because you're going to be out of aim. Now, the most important reason why that torquing of that RMR onto your pistol is important is the very fact that these things take a beating. When this thing is sitting on this slide, it's taking way more of a beating than a red dot does on an AR-15. On an AR-15, it simply sits on the receiver, and the bolt inside is what's retracting and going back and forth with all that force and pulling all those G's. On a pistol, this is essentially your bolt that you see inside your AR-15. So this is what's rotating. So the very thing that your RMR is sitting on, that it's riding on, this is like a wild, crazy roller coaster ride. It's going back and forth on this thing, and it's hammering backwards and it's hammering forwards. I've read where this thing is equivalent to pulling 10,000 G's, 10,000 G's as it goes backwards and slams forward again. Now, not only does that make it extremely important to have this thing torqued down properly on your slide, it's also important to not go buy one of these cheap, no good, junk, $79 RMRs. You need to spend some money. You're gonna spend roughly around the $400 range. This is the Delta Point by Leupold. I know the Trijicon RMR is a great one too. I have one of those. I love it as well. Again, you're going to need to spend some money. If you're not spending $300 to $400 on an RMR to put on a pistol, seriously, don't waste your money. Save it up and spend it on something that's going to last, because you're going to be really disappointed whenever you put that thing on here and when you really want it, it's not lit up. Now you might be thinking, okay, you're wanting me to take an RMR with me along for the ride whenever I'm concealed carrying. How do I know that my battery's not going to be dead? You don't know that your battery's not going to be dead. That's why it's equally important to train with your RMR, not only as it's lit up versus your iron sights, but also as if it's not lit up. If you can turn it off, turn it off. Now this one right here is a Delta Point. It stays on until you cover it up. Then it turns itself off. It has a cover that goes over it. So it's always lit when I see it. Now what I'll do is I'll put a piece of tape over this thing to get familiar with pointing and shooting. That way I'm not actually using sights. Now keep in mind, if you do it the right way, you're usually going to have suppressor sights. That's the right thing to do. Get the raised sights that are basically suppressor sights for shooting over a suppressor if you had one. These are good to co-witness, but that's not going to do you any good if you have mud in front of this thing, or if it's fogged out really bad when you get out of a cold vehicle and get into the warm, humid Louisiana air. It's not going to do you much good. Now, one of the things I like to do, and I found this out, is if you cock this thing, give it a cant to the side like that, lean it inward, and you're going to be able to use this top rail right here. This top point right here on your RMR, and you can aim at your sight, at your target rather, and you're going to hit it. Now it takes some practice because you have to get used to where that thing needs to line up, but if you line it up properly, you're going to be able to utilize that with that whole RMR being completely blocked out. Guys, if you're anything like me, you're somewhat skeptical when something new comes around. I don't mind telling you that the RMR on a pistol was not something that I was excited to do. In fact, it took me quite some time before I even experimented with it. However, I got to tell you, once you get familiar with it, man, it does make it easier. You know, you see these guys that are tearing it up on the IPSC and the USPSA ranges with their optics, and you're thinking, man, those guys are really good. Well, they are really good, but guess what? They're a lot quicker because they're able to acquire their targets and get down on it really, really fast. And a lot of it has to do with not only their training, but their red dot optics. You know, again, I mentioned the point of training because simply throwing one of these on a pistol and trying to go to town with it's not going to do you any good. You got to train. It's like with anything else. You better put some training behind it because it is different than iron sights. Don't take your concealed carry gun today, slap an RMR on it and put it in a holster and start carrying it. If you haven't trained with it, don't waste your time. You need to train with these things, but they're a lot of fun. They're easy to use. They're relatively easy to mount with these connections that come with them now because most of these guns are milled out. I don't necessarily recommend milling your own gun out just to see if you like one. Buy a pistol that has the thing already milled out, the slide already milled out. That way it sits down in it the way it's supposed to. Again, it helps if you put the suppressor sights because they're a little bit more raised. But yeah, man, check them out. To me, I think somebody who doesn't make it to the range a lot and can't practice a ton probably can practice with one of these and be a little bit more comfortable when you're concealed carrying, knowing that you can't make it to the range as often as you would like to. Guys, be safe, shoot straight, and as always, you know, take a child out, teach them how to shoot a gun, or take an older person out that doesn't have the chance to go to the range by themselves anymore. You know, reintroduce them to the shooting sports. We'll see you guys next time.